Hello and welcome to another F Word podcast. I'm that Kimberly. And before we introduce our guest or our guest introduced himself, I'm going to just let you know that we're going to be talking about fraud at the highest level. Whether you're watching or listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, or LinkedIn, wherever you're watching us from, let us know. If you have a question, please leave it in the comments and we'll get back to you. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into this. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are, where you're from, a little bit about.
Well, my name is Tim Harris. I work for Atlantic Residential. I've been in Atlanta for 15 years this year, and I've been in multifamily property management for 11 of those 15 years. It was my first job out of college, essentially.
Did they recruit
Um,
you, or did you just fall into it?
Yeah, I just fell into it. I thought I wanted to go um, into real estate, and a friend of mine recommended property management to see if I would still have the same interests converting from leasing to real estate. And 11 years later, as you can see, I'm still in multifamily and not in real estate. I really enjoy my job.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's always good when you enjoy what you do. It
Mhm.
helps you get up every day and go to work, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what was going on at your property as it related to fraud before you jumped into a service.
So the current company that I work for, Atlantic Residential, we've always used ApproveShield, but I worked for another major owner management group prior to joining, and they did not use ApproveShield. And my experience with that company was that, while it was a great company, the leasing process could be a little strenuous because the on-site team, we had to act as detectives because fraud is so high in Atlanta. We're having to, you know, hard examine pay stubs, verify offer letters, get on Google Earth and research some of these websites and these businesses to see what their physical address looks like if they
Right.
have one. Going on Georgia, Secretary Business Search. It took a lot of our time, I
Yeah.
will say, because we are not trained at the time, we were not trained fraud experts. It would take us a great deal of time with these applications. And, some people would slip through the cracks and would get in anyway. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, and you're searching for fraud, right? To look for fraud. That's kind of your second job.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a part-time job that I inadvertently signed up for. So
Yeah. So did you find once you got to go back to a property that had a proof shield that your on-site team found it useful and enjoyed having it as a service?
yes, 100%. Once I was able to start with the community that used Approved Shield, and I would say used Approved Shield from the property's development through when I came on, it made a significant difference. Team morale, property presentation, delinquency. Find that properties that use or have been on Approved Shield's application screening system since their development, or since they became a open property, they tend to have lower delinquencies. They tend to have less damage around the property, less lease violations, because typically people that use their real credit, have real social, their real, you know,
Everything.
government IDs, they tend to care about the property a little bit more. They tend to actually pay their rent versus someone that is using, say, a CPN or fraudulent ID or some kind of other fraud documents. Well, they don't really care because there's no way to reprimand them if things go south and, they fall behind on their rent or, they get an eviction filed on them. It's not their real identity.
And they don't care because they're going to skip to the next and keep skipping to the next and keep skipping to the next. That's definitely one of the joys of having a proof sheets database, that they have tens of thousands of fraudsters, whatever you want to call them, um, that we can reference. I was amazed at all the things we have going on behind the scenes. So, Tim, tell me a little bit about your years of being in multifamily. Tell me a little bit about what you've learned about being in multifamily.
Um, as I mentioned before, I've been in multifamily for 11 years this year. One of the things that I've learned is to not judge a book by its cover. You know, things are not always what they seem, and what I mean by that, you know, just because a person feels legit or looks legit or acts legit, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a legitimate person. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. But yeah, things are not always what they seem. The industry is big, but it's small in the sense that a lot of multifamily professionals, we know each other.
Everybody
Um,
talks. Everybody talks.
yeah, everyone talks, and so there have been instances where I've had um, difficult or fraudulent people come in, and when they gave their, of course, their fraudulent name or whatever, I'm just like, that name sounded really familiar. You know, I review their application. I'm like, oh, you live at a property that my friend manages. Call the friend up, hey, I'm going to send you a rental verification. Can you fill it out for me? Okay, sure. Who's it for? It's for John Doe. Oh, absolutely not. He's under eviction. Or and he's been a nuisance. You know,
Wow.
he got in on, you know, using fraud paperwork. I mean, which these are things I'm going to find out anyway once ApproveShield does their background. But it's just the point I'm making is that the industry is very, very small,
Yeah.
especially once you get to a certain kind of community, you know, when you're dealing with ultra luxury or high hybrids or inner city communities, there's only but so many of them. Yeah, everybody talks. And it works on in reverse as well, you know, and if your property becomes one that has a reputation of one, not really screening their applicants too harshly or not using the Approve Shield service, just like the industry talks, the fraud industry talks as well, and you're going to get an influx of fraudulent people that suddenly want to move in tomorrow. They don't have any pricing restrictions. They're because they talk as well, you know.
Yeah.
So
It,
it works both ways.
well, I well, in just the past few years, we like to say that it's fraud is no longer a market, but it's an industry, and it's growing and growing. And like you said, they communicate through, I didn't know this, but they communicate through forums or Instagram pages or any kind of social media is how they connect with each other to find out the next place, right? Or find out the best place, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, right? So, do you have a funny fraud story or interesting?
Do I have a funny fraud story? I actually do. I think the year was maybe 2022. I was not with my current company, so it was not Atlantic Residential. But I had a young lady. She came in for a tour. She wasn't scheduled, so uh, two of my agents were already on a tour, and so you know she was a walk-in. I decided to help her because I just love touring. I love interacting with people. Figured it would just be a run of the mill tour. I talked to her for a little bit, asked some qualifying questions to kind of figure out when she needed to move, what size of apartment, of course, she needed to move within the next 2 weeks or less. She had just relocated to Atlanta from South Carolina, and she was a project manager, and she had a job offer. Now, those are all signs of fraud. However, the young lady, she came in dressed in some casual attire. She actually had on slacks. The company that she had an offer letter for was a legitimate company.
Hmm.
I think it was a major accounting firm, but she was specifically hired to be a project manager. And again, remember the company that I work for does not use ApproveShield. So the persons that would have to verify the legitimacy of the letter and things like that would be me or the
Yeah.
on-site team. And again, it was for a legitimate company, and I had heard of plenty of time before. So she completes the application that same day. And I want to say about a day and a half later, I get a call. The caller ID says the young lady's name, but I recognize the fact that it was a New York number. Still not really a red flag because people live all over the world, and you
Mm.
know, for whatever reason, they have different area codes. She answers I answer the phone, and she says, uh, "What kind of business is this?" I learned that, you know, it's an apartment community. asked who I'm speaking with. She says her name, Jane Doe. And I mentioned, we toured 2 days ago. You put in the application. You don't recognize my voice. I don't recognize your voice. And she's like, I've never met you before. In fact, I've never even been to Atlanta. I live in New York City. I've never been outside of the city. And I said, that's interesting. So you didn't apply for an apartment? She said, no, I didn't apply for an apartment. I didn't tour an apartment. Again, I've never left New York. So I asked her to do me a favor, send me a front and back copy of her driver's license so that I could see who I'm speaking to. And one, I could scan her ID into Checkpoint. So once I verified that her ID was real, I told her that, unfortunately, someone's gotten hold to her credit file and has been completing applications and conducting tours as if they are her. How she found out is that when the fraudster applied for the apartment, it had a credit pull. Well, it pulled Jane Doe's credit in New York. She got an alert. She Googled the property, called the property, and now she's having a conversation with me about how she did not authorize this. She's never been to Atlanta, and she's not looking for an apartment. So I asked her if she wanted to press charges. She said yes. Our courtesy officer happened to be a detective, and so I got them in contact with one another. And so what the detective recommended that we do was still continue on with the with things as if she's approved for the apartment, so that way he could arrest her. So I did that because at this point in the screening process, the credit screening is already completed. Her credit's already approved. It was a matter of verifying her income and sending her a receipt sent to her lease. She signed. She secured Georgia Power in this young lady's name. She secured renter's insurance in this young lady's name. She shows up. We had the move-in gift ready for her. Shook her hand. I welcomed her. Had her have a seat in my office. I told her that I just had to run and get her keys. She already had a money order ready. She was in my office pulling it out. As I exit my office, the detective and two other officers come into my office, ask her to stand up, get her Miranda rights, and then they arrest her. Once they arrested her, they did go through her bag and they found 6 other IDs and 3
Wow.
other socials. So,
Wow. That's amazing. That's a lot of lies to keep up with, right?
yeah. Yeah, and then the young lady in New York mentioned that she actually had 2 credit inquiries, one from my company at the time, and there was another company as well, but she wasn't able to Google the Atlanta-based property. She was seeing their corporate entity show up, and it kind of was just taking her in circles. I say that to say this young lady was not just applying for an apartment with my community. She was applying in multiple communities, and my assumption would be she was going to get as many apartments as she could, and either potentially work Airbnb or
Mm.
person living there. Remember, she did have multiple other IDs, multiple other socials in her purse the day of.
Wow. It's definitely a crime that's just, it's staggering. It's crazy how people think that they're going to be able to get past ApproveShield or, the technology that people have nowadays to look up or call. Like you said, all she did was a Google search. I heard that offer letters were really hard to verify. I don't know if you've had that experience, but when we get them verified because we look up the EIN number, we make sure that they're registered as a business, and then we call the business. Do you have to do all that too when before you had ApproveShield?
Um, so what I would do is I would often Secretary of State and then look under their business search because I do know that if they don't have a business license, then they can't pay employees. Then I would have to Google the business to see if they had a legitimate website, then look for the number on the website. Most of the time, they didn't have a website, or if they did have a website, you could tell it was just like a GoDaddy website where it was just more like web pages. Then I would call the number. Of course, the number wasn't real. Then I would go on Google Earth and, you know, you say you work for ABC Moving Company. They say they've been in business since 1985 and do a Google Earth search. The address listed on the business license, it's an apartment or it's a landfill.
That's crazy.
And
That's
then the salary level match. It'll say it's a mom and pop moving company and their front desk secretary makes six figures. Now, while that may be possible in some realm, but more likely than not, they usually overshoot themselves with the proof of income, the salary, or the salary will be exactly three times the rent, down to the dollars and cents, which is usually very high as well.
that's good to know. That's good to know to share with others when they're having to deal with fraud if they don't have a service or they're using something that's a one, like an AI product and that's it. Nothing, with physical people calling and finding out about who's on the other end. So I didn't know that people would do that. And well, I know that they were falsifying the income, but not being stupid and putting three times the amount to the dollar because that would be
Yes.
a red sign.
I've had people even submit pay stubs that have been doctored where they'll adjust the hourly rate or the salary, but then they'll forget to adjust the year to date, or they'll forget to adjust the taxes because your taxes is directly tied to the amount of pay
Yeah.
you have.
Hmm.
Or I've even had one where the pay stub started off as real, and the applicant kind of wrote over a real pay stub, but they forgot to remove the person's name. So Kimberly Scott is applying, but she forgot to remove Jane Doe's name and employee number from the fake ADP stuff that she's submitting. So it's comical. So some of the signs that I would observe when dealing with people that are fraudulent, they typically want to move in immediately. They're always going to overshare information that you didn't ask for. It's always some kind of very dramatic brand situation. Oh, I just got back from Fiji. I just relocated to Atlanta. I don't know anything about anything. And I was just driving down Peachtree Street and I saw this building. What's your penthouse for? Or what's your best apartment with the best view? Okay, can I move in tomorrow? So what are the qualifications?
Hmm.
What credit background do you use? Do you use Equifax? Do you use Experian? Do you do rental verification? Who's your screening service? You don't use ApproveShield, do you? Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. No, I don't have any pets. I don't have any pets. Dog hair everywhere. Picture of them with a dog on the phone. And they always, always, always work for a company that you've never heard of. And they have this absorbent salary for a position that just doesn't track.
Wow.
Secretary at a mom and pop moving company making, $150,000 coming from
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Definitely tracking, right?
And then when you do the verification, the employment verification, well, did you call the number on the letter? No, I called the number on Google. That doesn't exist. Or, do the Secretary of Business search. You don't have a business license, or this company dissolved in 2012. It's 2025.
Wow. And they look at you with a straight face or they just turn around and walk out.
They will. What? That is news to me. Why?
Wow.
No, because I definitely have pay stubs. Do you? Well, these pay stubs say 2017 though. I've had a person submit pay stubs that they were passing off as the current year and they were 5 years. They forgot to change the date. They forgot to change the name. The taxes always gets them. They can never calculate the taxes correctly.
Just you make sure shake your head, right? There's not
Yeah.
much more you can do. What would you
It's
call? Go ahead.
yeah, it's you working in this industry, you usually can tell who's going to be a fraudster. Like I said, they always have to move in ASAP. They always have this really dramatic story. My other favorite is, hey, I'm on your website. I've never been to Atlanta before. I have no idea where anything is at. But I want to lease at your apartment community. I'm going to lease today and I'm going to move in next week. And no, I don't need to see it. Leases the apartment. Okay, well, now that my application is complete, can my friend come pick up keys? Because I'm going to be on a flight. I'm so busy. I'm so busy that I can't pick up keys to my brand new apartment that I'm just going to pay rent for. But my friend can pick up keys. The friend is usually the actual occupant.
What would you tell somebody who doesn't, what would you tell someone about why they should use ApproveShield?
I believe that everyone that can use Approved Shield should use Approved Shield, because it's going to take a lot of pressure and time off the on-site team. We no longer have to act like leasing agents and property managers and Sherlock Holmes. We can actually spend our time doing things that matter, like hosting resident events, providing great customer service, and it eliminates those awkward conversations with people that are fraudulent about their fraud. Home Shield also, what I like is that they have a dedicated uh, support person for every applicant. So that applicant is having issues uploading the documents or they are curious what documents are acceptable. They have a support specialist that can kind of hold their hand through the process, as well as, the on-site team. Uh, we give them a spreadsheet that pretty much has acceptable forms of income, acceptable proofs of income, and whether or not acceptable based on the person's situation. If you are a contract employee, if you are a standard employee, if you're self-employed, if you're retired, they have a category with acceptable forms of income from there. And I appreciate that anytime there's a snag, I can call the Approved Shield line and I can talk directly to the agent that is managing this particular application. The turnaround time, I will say the turnaround time took a little bit of getting used to because I'm used to doing it myself on site. So the turnaround
That's a
time
good
would
point.
be however much time I had on my hands, but it's pretty standard and it's pretty quick. At my property now, our average turnaround time is about 3 business days, but we tell the applicant anywhere from 3 to 5 business days just
Yeah.
to add in some buffer. And a lot of it is actually not on a proof shield, it's really on the applicant. The applicant is required to submit X amount of documents. They may submit, a document that's outdated, the incorrect document. Well, that's only adding to your approval timeline. Or
Yeah.
they may have not entered a notice with their previous landlord. Well, now we got to go back and, you know, make sure you notice, resubmit that. So I just tell everyone 3 to 5 business days. But it also gives us time to make sure that things on the back end, you know, is the apartment clean house. We walked them. I can work on other applications versus being inundated with being Sherlock Holmes with the fraud people. Another thing I will say is because Approved Shield has a strong reputation of detecting fraud early, a lot of people that are fraudulent, if they see the Approved Shield logo on the website or if they see the Approved Shield sign in the leasing office, they'll cancel the tour. They suddenly lose interest. They no longer need to move. They'll stop wasting your time. They'll see the Approved Shield logo and say, you know what, never mind. I have the wrong address. So,
At least that saves you time and energy from having to, submit them and knowing that they're going to be denied. So great deterrent for sure. I'm glad we're well known in the fraudster community because it definitely helps in the process, right? We have
mm,
we have a huge database of people who are doing the right things. So it definitely makes it easier on us to have things to reference on top of going to the Department of States. So there's all the things that we need to make sure that they are who they say they are
mhm,
and make what they say they make.
mhm.
That's the most important thing. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share with us, Tim?
No, I can't. I love Approved Shield. I think that Approved Shield is a great company. I've been working with them for going on my 3rd year now. And I can honestly say that it's things that I used to stress about, like I said, sifting through the applications and calling this employer, doing this rental verification. They really just take a lot of pressure off the on-site team's shoulders. And it's, I think it's becoming more of a standard here in Atlanta. I can at least say 5 of our 7 comps in Midtown, they use
Mhm.
Approved Shield. So when persons are coming in for a tour, we always ask them, "Are you familiar with ApproveShield?" And the answer is usually either yes, current community uses ApproveShield, or yes, the property I toured before here, they use ApproveShield. So I know what's expected of me, what the timeline is going to look like. So if you're looking to move in tomorrow,
It's not
this is,
happening.
it's never happening.
Well, we appreciate you so much. We appreciate the partnership with you and Atlantic. We appreciate the wisdom that you shared about ApproveShield, because people sometimes get the wrong idea and they don't listen to all the things that we can take off the plate of the on-site team. And I've even had people say that it's like having a second employee that you're not paying. So
Yeah.
we definitely like to hear all those things, and that you're getting the customer service that you need and all of it. It definitely is something that we strive for, to be accurate and to be having great customer service. Thank you, Tim, so much for sitting in and having a conversation with me. And for everyone listening, make sure you either like, follow, or share, so that way you know the next time we release another podcast. Until then, nice talking to y'all. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate
Bye.
you.